Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Osteoporosis Canada's cooking demo webinar. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices located in Toronto are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli, Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your cooking demo host. This webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge, and it's not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice. But if you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. Now, we would love to hear from you during the cooking demo, so if you have questions or comments related to the webinar, you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen or enter your comments in the chat, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can during today's webinar within the time available. There are now 5 nutrients recommended by Osteoporosis Canada for bone health and in the prevention and management of osteoporosis. Calcium, one of the key minerals that supports new bone formation and helps maintain strong bones. Vitamin D ensures our bodies can absorb enough calcium and supports muscle function. Protein is necessary to build and repair bone tissue and helps keep muscles strong. Magnesium helps our bodies use vitamin D, important for calcium absorption, and vitamin K activates a protein that helps build bone and bind minerals such as calcium to the bone structure. And of course, whenever possible, try and get nutrients through food sources. So let's look at some meal ideas to help you get the nutrients you need. Versatile ingredients are perfect for budget-friendly meals. We're all looking to eat well on a budget, and choosing versatile ingredients is just one way to maximize the number of ways you can use any one ingredient. And ground meat is budget friendly. It's so easy to transform into so many different dishes, and you can use any type or combination, including ground chicken, turkey, beef, pork, lamb, fish. Really, any protein can be used. And also adding different spices, other ingredients or flavorings, in addition to changing the cooking method, can provide different tastes and textures for the simple meatball, which makes for delicious meals from spaghetti and meatballs to stroganoff, soup, rice bowls, and wraps and sandwiches, or just to enjoy on their own. And all meal ideas that are budget friendly can help ensure you get protein and other bone building nutrients you need. So let's get cooking. Today's featured recipe is chicken shawarma meatballs with couscous and a Greek yogurt garlic sauce. And each serving has 300 milligrams of calcium, 38 grams of protein, 278 micrograms of vitamin K, 110 milligrams of magnesium, and 0.8 micrograms of vitamin D. Now, you can find today's featured recipe along with others by visiting osteoporosis.ca/recipes, but I will also put that link into the chat. It's now my pleasure to welcome Emily Richards, a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she's the author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating, and she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts just like this one. Please welcome Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hi. Hey, Tracie, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Really excited about today's cooking demo, and we have such a great turnout. I think everyone's excited to get into some new flavors, get some new ideas in the kitchen, simple meal ideas. But before we start, as always, we're going to give away an apron, the lovely apron that Emily is wearing. So if you're on by the end of today's webinar, we'll draw your name and then we'll send it to you. So Emily, take it away. Oh, Emily is on mute. So Emily is just gonna go and we're live. So that's what's happening. Let's just see here. All right. There we go. Emily?
I'm here. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulties.
That's okay. I know, because normally you're chatting with me right when we're about to give telling people about the apron giveaway. So yeah, and we're gonna make this delicious meal. We're all really excited. So I'm gonna let you take it away.
Awesome, thank you. So you may hear a little bit of echo. My AirPods just all of a sudden stopped working. So I'm going to try to project my voice nice and loud, and hopefully you'll hear me. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Tracie and I will chat about those questions as we move along. But we are here to make a delicious chicken shawarma meatball sheet pan dinner. And what I love about this is, as Tracie mentioned right from the get-go, is meatballs are typically a family favorite. And this has some different spices that maybe you haven't used before, and we can talk about that. But the variation of the meatball is fantastic. And here we're going to incorporate some veggies too. So the color is there, the flavor is there, and hands down, this I know is a winning recipe in my house. It gets requested on repeat. So that always makes me super happy. As usual, I have my recipe right in front of me because I can forget things. And so it's always good to have the recipe nearby, whether you're working on a screen or on a paper copy, just to make sure that you have everything. And I do have everything. So if it looks like I have lots in front of me, it's because I do. The ingredient list here has a variety of different spices, and that's really what helps build the flavor of this meatball. And if you've ever gone out for shawarma, you're usually entranced by the fragrance and also all the flavors that come through. So that really shines in these meatballs. So what we're going to do is get all the components of the meatball before we actually add the protein, which we are using ground chicken today, but you could definitely use ground turkey if you wanted to. So I like to get all the flavors together and mixed well so that they'll get dispersed throughout the meatball. So we're going to start off with some breadcrumbs. So these are just plain dry breadcrumbs. And if you happen to have seasoned breadcrumbs, you could use those. If you have some stale bread that you need to get rid of, just put it on your grater, or if you have time to put it in the food processor and pulse it up, you can use that for the breadcrumbs. So here, I'm also going to add a little bit of fiber to our meatball. I'm going to use some flaxseed, which has been ground, and that is lovely benefit. It also adds a nice texture to the meatball. Now, if it's something you don't have readily, I keep mine in the freezer, so I have it often. You can just replace the amount with more breadcrumbs. Okay, so don't worry about that. And if you're already thinking, I have gluten-free family members, what can I do? Simply use a gluten-free breadcrumb to use instead of the regular breadcrumbs. We're also going to add a little bit of minced or finely diced red onion. This could be regular cooking onion if you have it, or a shallot. A quarter cup is usually one shallot. And don't worry, you're going to buy this big red onion and you're going to wonder, what am I going to do with the rest of it? You're using it in the recipe, so don't worry. I got you covered there. So we're also going to add a little bit of Greek yogurt. This is just 2 tablespoons. And if you're wondering about the amounts, don't worry, Tracie will cover you there with a link to the recipe so that you have all the amounts, so you don't have to be writing anything down. So some Greek yogurt, and if you buy plain Greek yogurt, you have the option of buying a high protein plain Greek yogurt. So that is an additional benefit. And guess what else it has? Some calcium, which is what we're looking for. So that is a wonderful addition there. So here are our array of spices. Now this is one of my favorites. I love smelling it. I'd share it with you, but maybe you can imagine it. It's smoked paprika. And if you don't have smoked paprika, you can use regular paprika in the recipe, but that smokiness really adds a wonderful flavor to the overall meatball. Now here's where we're going to get into our spices. We're going to add some ground cumin and coriander. You often see those together. Some ground turmeric, and that's going to give us a really nice golden color. And some kind of what we might consider sweet spices we're also using. We're going to be using some cardamom and ground cinnamon. Okay, so that kind of balances out that little bit of the other spices by adding some sweetness in the sense. They're not sweet spices, but they do, if you think of cinnamon, typically it's baking that you're thinking of, as well as cardamom. And for those of you that haven't used cardamom, a lot of people recognize that aroma or flavor when they've had chai tea. So that is something that may be reminiscent of something you've had. And I'm going to add some fresh garlic. And if you're not a big fan of garlic, you don't have to use the largest clove in the head. You could use something a little bit smaller, but I do love that large clove of garlic. And then we're also going to add our salt. So I'm using a fork kind of to mash everything up here, but we need a little bit more glue for our meatball. And I'm going to add an egg, okay? And just kind of mix that up in there too. So this really helps get all those spices mixed together and make sure that I have that flavor building right from the get-go, okay? And it already smells great. I know you guys can't smell it, but I encourage you to maybe make it tonight for dinner or put it on the to-do list for this week, dinner plans. So that's our first part. Now the chicken. So here is a package of chicken. Typically when you're looking for ground chicken or turkey, it comes in a 454-gram package, which is about a pound. And that is perfect to feed 4 to 6 people, okay? So I'm going to open up my package here and add it right in, just like that. There we go. And you're going to hear everything now. So I'm going to this is where your hands get involved, okay? And you're going to start mixing. So I like to kind of fold all those spices in, just like that, okay? And what we're looking for is to get a nice distribution of all those spices throughout the chicken, okay? Now, Tracie and I were talking about this just before kind of we got started, because I had the chicken out at room temp, not for very long, but you could just pull it out of the refrigerator and use it, but it's up to you. For some people, having that really cold chicken bothers their fingers as they're working with the meatball mixture. For others, it's totally fine. So you kind of know your limits. And if this is becoming tiresome, so if let's say you're standing and you're already tired, just grab a seat and relax, and you can mix this at your leisure, okay? But I'm not squishing the chicken mixture through my fingers because I don't want to add any more. It doesn't need to be ground anymore. It just needs to be combined. So that's kind of why I'm folding it. How does it look so far, Tracie?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute.
That's okay.
It looks good. And you know what? I think because we've got some questions coming in, but you know, everyone talks about, you know, when they've had a really good meatball, like how tender it is. And part of that is not, like Emily said, not squishing it. And, you know, it's already ground. We don't need to do that much work to it, right? So it's really about having a light touch.
Yes.
Emily, what do you think?
It is totally about a light touch. And you can visibly see how all the spices are distributed. So that's why I like mixing everything together first, so that when you add the chicken, you'll notice right away that as you fold everything in, it is nice and even. And that is our goal. We want the spicing and all the flavors that we put in to be distributed well throughout the ground chicken, okay? So what I'm gonna do to make my life easier is start rolling these meatballs. But I like to add a little bit of moisture to my hands to roll them, because that just makes the meatball mixture work better. So I'm just gonna run over to the sink, okay? And just kind of lightly run my hands under some water, okay? I have to turn this off now just for a second. Oh, there we go, okay. And what I'm gonna do is, this is sometimes the trickiest part of making meatballs. How many meatballs am I gonna get? So I want you to get 16 meatballs. And if you're looking at it going, how am I gonna get 16 meatballs? This is by far, I think, one of my favorite tips to give. So I'm just kind of evening out the mixture, dividing it, eyeballing it in half, and then in quarters, okay? So I know from each quarter, I need to get 4 meatballs. So I pick up that quarter, divide it in half, and each half again, and I can start rolling, okay? And I do the same thing when it comes to hamburgers and other types of meatballs. Okay, so that little bit of moisture just helps the chicken mixture not stick too much. We do want it to be nice and moist. So that little bit of water on the outside of your hands will also help create that nice moist chicken meatball. Okay. Now, if this becomes, let's say you just don't want to roll, you're not a fan of getting your hands in there, and you could mix everything with a spoon, by the way. You don't have to get your hands involved. I always have kitchen gloves in my kitchen, so you could always put gloves on so that you can pull them off if you need to, attend to something quickly. So you could do that, or you can also use an ice cream scoop. So you can find an ice cream scoop that is suited to meatball sizes, or the size of meatballs that you would like. So I have an example here. This is about, I'd say, 2 heaping tablespoons for a meatball. So you can just scoop out your chicken mixture and put it right onto the sheet pan, and you don't have to roll it. Okay, just make sure that it's packed nice and tight so that you don't have any air pockets in your meatball. And this will go a little bit quicker for you. Okay, so this is also a great size for cookies if you're a baker. So you can use it for many, many things. It's a great kitchen tool. So I'll do the remaining meatballs here with my ice cream scoop. How many ice cream scoops do you have, Tracie? You probably have lots. You're a baker.
You know what, I do, and I have to tell you, somebody thought that I was so skilled at making cookies because they were all the same size. And then they found out that I had a whole variety of different scoops, and they thought, well, we're not as impressed anymore at your cookies. I was like, okay, well then. But it's great for other stuff. Like if you have to scoop out other ingredients, or it's just really handy to have. Just like I will say, cookie sheet. So sometimes people will ask us, like, what kind of kitchen equipment? And sometimes it's just a matter of having, like, cookie sheets are so inexpensive and different sizes to help with food prep, to help with apportioning things out. If you're moving things from, let's say, you're braising it to a pan because then you want to put it in the oven, they're just so easy. So, but yes, I do have a few. I'm always in the market for another cookie scoop to kind of see. And look how great they are. All right, let's take a look.
There's our 16 meatballs. And to save the life of your baking sheets, I have parchment paper. You could use aluminum foil on here as well. And it just really adds longevity to your baking sheets, which is fabulous. So we're going to add a few more delicious items to this. We're going to add some veggies. So that's where some color is going to come in. And you can really choose whatever you happen to have in the crisper. Peppers were on sale this week. But in the recipe, I called for 2 peppers, any color. So if you need to get rid of those green peppers, I find that those are the ones that nobody ever wants to eat, but they're delicious roasted. So you could definitely use those. An orange pepper. Okay, so 2 peppers, basically any color. If you're looking for some spice, I got you covered. 1 jalapeno pepper. Okay, now these ones have the seeds in them. If you don't want that heat, you can remove the seeds and just slice it up, or you could leave the jalapeno pepper out and use a Cubanelle pepper, which would give you another pepper, but not as much heat. If you want a milder heat, a hot banana pepper would work really nicely here too, okay? And then remember I told you about that red onion because you had to chop some up for the meatball. Here's where you're gonna use the rest of it, okay? So just sprinkle it all over top. These are the kind of meals that are fabulous because you just kind of get everything ready, and then we're going to do some other things while it's roasting away. Okay, so there's my red onion. And then we're just going to drizzle it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. If you want, you could also use cooking spray to drizzle on top or spray everything. You could use a neutral oil. Okay, so whatever you happen to have, just a couple tablespoons, and that's going to add a little bit of color and help everything roast along. So I already have my oven at, doesn't it look, that looks beautiful. That overhead was gorgeous.
Isn't it? I know, it's so all the colors, and you can completely put whatever veggies you want. That's what we love about this.
Yes, and so if you have, we're basically cooking the meatballs for about 20 minutes. So any vegetable that will have that tender, crisp texture in about 20 minutes, zucchini would be fabulous. If you cut eggplant really small, an Asian eggplant would be beautiful in this as well. So if you have some carrots and celery that you just need to get rid of some veggies, this is a great opportunity to use them because it all together with the flavor of the meatballs, it's really going to shine through. So I'm going to put this into my 425 oven, which is already nice and hot. I'm going to put the timer on. Okay, and we're going to do some other things. But Tracie, did you say that there were questions?
Yes, we do. And so, I mean, if you're a regular on our Cook with OC program, you know that we love anything that is versatile because we want to eliminate food waste. We don't want to waste money as well, because when you throw out food, you're throwing out money. And also we want to eat well and get the nutrients we need, but we also want it to be delicious. So sometimes some of the tricks are, like Emily was saying, like for carrots and celery, cutting things smaller, like the eggplant, to cook in the amount of time so that they're not huge pieces and you're wondering why they're still way too crunchy or they're way too small so they burned, etc. So it's just figuring out who's done that. Hello. The other night actually, but it's all good. But we do have some questions, and a lot of this is about substitutions, which we also love. So the nutrient breakdown that we gave you, and on the website, so I put the link in the chat, we'll have the full nutrient breakdown, including calories and fat and sodium, etc. So, so there is that. It's based on the meatball, the chicken meatball, all the ingredients that went into it, the couscous, all the ingredients that went into that, and the yogurt sauce. Now, so when you switch things out, you may get a little more, a little less of some of the nutrients. So that's really something that we always encourage you to kind of read labels, etc. But some of the questions are, could someone use ground oats or panko instead of breadcrumbs? That's one of the questions, two questions actually.
That is an excellent question, and yes to both of them.
Great.
So definitely use ground oats, and if you don't want to grind them yourself, you could just use the 1 minute or quick oats because they're a finer texture, so those would work really well. And panko is a great substitute to have for breadcrumbs because it is a plain breadcrumb. It's just a little crunchier. But as you mix everything, that's another reason why I like to mix everything ahead of time, because that egg will soften that crunchier type breadcrumb, and then you won't kind of get that crunch in the meatball. You'll just get that nice texture that we're looking for.
Absolutely. And so, if you really like panko to, let's say, bread, meat or cutlets or anything else, and you don't want to like make something additional, it's about using the same ingredient in a variety of different ways. So
Yes.
that's a great opportunity to let them moisten a bit in the egg. We have some questions on the Greek yogurt. So here's one question. If they wanted, so does the thickness of the yogurt make a difference? Because there's some other questions. So that's the first thing. Like, do they need the thickness of the Greek yogurt?
If you have a Balkan style plain yogurt, a regular plain yogurt, you can use any of them. I just want you to stir it first, because remember, it separates into its curds and whey as it's in the refrigerator. So make sure you give it a good stir before you use it. So, and that can be for both parts of the recipe where we're using the yogurt. So you definitely can. However, as Tracie mentioned, where it varies is the amount of protein that you're going to get in it. So the calcium will be similar. However, it's the protein in some of those yogurts. Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes, because I see the water boiling. So you keep going and I'm going to save the other questions. Keep them coming in, everyone.
So this is the broth for our kale couscous. So it's just chicken broth. You could use vegetable broth. You could use water, whatever you happen to have. Bring it to a simmer. And then basically I'm going to turn this off. This is why I love couscous. In goes the couscous, in goes the kale. Okay, just like that. And I'm just going to grab a fork to stir it all together. And then we're just going to put a lid on it and let it sit there for 5 minutes. Okay. Now, couscous is quick. It's a great side dish for so many dinners because of its quickness. So we'll let that sit. However, it's not gluten-free. So if you are looking for a gluten-free option, quinoa is fabulous. And you can use, it'll take a little bit longer, but it's about the same time that the chicken is in the oven. So while the meatballs are cooking, you can cook that quinoa and cook it with the kale near the end. So as the quinoa is almost finished, you can add the kale, cover it, and it'll steam through. So we really want to get that nice bright color of the kale. And if you're thinking, Emily, kale again, spinach, Swiss chard, whatever green that you might have lurking in the crisper is a great opportunity to add in here because it adds color and it also adds some nice nutrition to balance out our meal. There. So now we can get back to questions, Tracie.
Okay, great. And you know what? I'm going to ask you because it's one of our favorite go-to freezer staples. How about a handful of frozen peas? So if you don't have, because we love the frozen peas, they're in the freezer. And because somebody did ask, what can we substitute for kale? And the reason, kale is great for a lot of, calcium and vitamin K, etc. Green peas are great too. Would it be done in 5 minutes?
Oh, for sure. Because the frozen peas, I would add them exactly the same time as the kale, and they will steam through, and they'll have that nice texture at the end. They'll be heated through. But you could do the same with other frozen mixed vegetables that you have, right? If they're chunkier, so if it was, let's say, a California mix with broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots, those are bigger pieces. So you can actually cook those in the broth as it comes to the simmer, and then add the couscous to it. So it's great to have those frozen veg. And by the way, you don't have to use fresh kale. You could use frozen chopped kale, frozen chopped spinach, and you can add it same time, just at the end, and it will add that wonderful color and a little bit of texture too, which is nice.
Now on the frozen veg, somebody just asked, what if it was frozen spinach? What do you think?
I would use frozen spinach for sure. So it depends on the type of frozen spinach you buy. A long time ago, and it's still kind of available in some markets, it was a block of chopped spinach that you had to buy, and you couldn't break it up. Now you can actually buy bags of frozen chopped spinach that come in little bundles that are typically, I would say, about half a cup. So you could add a couple of those, and it'll be, because it's chopped finer, it'll be a lot greener than what we have. But you just take a couple of those out and put it in there, and you have some wonderful spinach. So yeah, definitely. Chopped spinach, frozen spinach would be great.
Okay. Now I love this next question. What is the ingredient that makes this shawarma? Like what are those ingredients that makes this a chicken shawarma?
So I will be very upfront. There are, for every family, there is a recipe for shawarma, just like in every culture. So it is a combination of spices, and traditionally it would be in a meatball. So when you reference a specific iconic dish like shawarma, you take components of it to kind of create something that is in honor of it. So the spices are definitely something that represent shawarma. But if you look at shawarma recipes across the globe, they vary tremendously. It's just like saying, Tracie and I have Italian heritage. Yeah. Her sauce is different than my sauce. And so in honor of honoring kind of that heritage, you take components of it to recreate it. Now, if we just called these spiced chicken meatballs, they'd still be delicious, and we could definitely do that, but it wouldn't be in honor of what we're trying to represent. And I think that is the best way to describe what our goal for shawarma is. And you could definitely serve them in the style of shawarma, where if you wanted to have it with fries or with rice, or if you wanted to have it in a wrap, you could totally do that. And trust me, in my house, there's 5 of us and we have it a different way. So not everybody likes the kale couscous. Some of it like it on some naan or in a pita bread, or you know what? They're delicious cold in a salad with the yogurt garlic sauce as a dressing. So you can interpret it and make it fit for your family.
And we love that. So kind of on that, because we do get asked this. So there were a lot of spices in this dish. And earlier on, when we kind of introduced the cooking demo, we said, really, when you start switching the spices, you can make the meatball any kind of flavor that you want. So if you don't have all the spices, or you aren't particularly fond of all the spices, you just need to kind of switch it up. Even if you didn't put half of those spices in, it would still be delicious on its own with the Greek yogurt sauce and with the kale couscous or in a sandwich, etc., however you want to make it, right?
I will tell you right now, if you just did, I'm going to read right from the recipe. If you did the breadcrumbs, flax, egg, yogurt, red onion, garlic, and smoked paprika and stopped there, added some salt if you wanted, delicious meatball. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to add the cumin and coriander, great. If you don't have turmeric, or if you're already questioning the cinnamon and cardamom, you don't have to add it. It really is, meatballs are forgiving in so many ways. I remember when my son didn't like meatballs, it was very hard for me to kind of, be a mom and not have my children eat meatballs. But we fixed that really quick. So it's just something that is very versatile and friendly, I think. And so don't be afraid of the spices. If you're willing to kind of try it out because you have had shawarma at a restaurant and you want to replicate something similar, you could also find shawarma spice mixes where all the spices are mixed together. And all I would do is kind of take an average of the amount of spices, which is a couple of tablespoons, and add that into your ground chicken. Okay, so if you have a favorite shawarma restaurant, you could go in and say, hey, I'd love some of your shawarma seasoning. Can I buy some from you? And they would be honored because you love it so much that you're bringing it home and want to recreate it. So there is lots of ways when it comes to meatballs. So and be a bit of a free bird and experiment. That's what we love to do with these recipes, and hope that you are inspired to do that at home too.
Perfect. And one more question on the substitution. So if you didn't have flaxseed, it's not something regular in your pantry, it's an easy substitute, right?
Yes. In all honesty, you can leave it out entirely and the recipe will still work, or you could just add a couple extra tablespoons of breadcrumbs, whichever breadcrumbs you're using. Okay. So that's really, it's there to add that little bit of fiber and give us that nutritional benefit, because a couple of tablespoons, actually 1 tablespoon, goes a long way for a lot of people. So just to add it. And the great part is that if you start adding something like that on a regular basis, you're increasing your fiber in a small amount that then, hey, you're getting healthier as the day goes on, because it's not just about this meal, it's about all the meals, right? So it's just getting into the habit of something, that's all.
Perfect. Now, we have a lot of our folks who join us and they say, well, that looks like a lot of meatballs to make. I'm just one person, or there's just 2 of us. So we had a comment from someone who loves to do batch cooking, and that's what this is. Oh, are they coming out?
They're coming out, but we need to turn them. So
We need to turn them. Okay, so you know what? We're going to talk about batch cooking in a second. Let's watch Emily. Let's take a look.
So we're just going to turn these over. So now remember, these are large size meatballs too, okay? So if you want to make them smaller, you totally can. You'll just reduce the cooking time slightly, but you can see they have that beautiful golden color. Our vegetables are getting that little hint of golden brown as well. And it smells amazing in here because of all those spices. And then this is going to just go back into the oven for about 8 minutes just to finish cooking. So if 16 meatballs is too many, I still want you to cook everything, because you're going to just cook it and then you're going to freeze it. So let's say you're just cooking for 2 people tonight, and really all you can handle is 2 of those meatballs because they're large. So save 4, and you can freeze the other, do my math, that's 12. Freeze the other 12. You can freeze them in 4s or in 6s if you know that you're going to have a little bit more. And you can freeze the vegetables alongside with it. And if you want to make a full meal, you can freeze, I'm going to show you this now because this is ready, the kale couscous with it. Okay. So I had, my oldest son was doing a work co-op, and he loves shawarma. And so when I made these meatballs, I packed them up as meals for him. So he can eat a little bit more than 4 meatballs. I gave him like 5. And so I put the kale couscous on the bottom with the meatballs. And then I drizzled a little bit of the sauce on top, not too much because the texture does change in the freezer, but it was just enough to offer a little bit of extra flavor and sauce for the meatballs. And I froze them and shipped them off, and he was very, very happy to have them. So you definitely can do this as a batch cooking for the freezer, because we're using everything fresh. and it absolutely delicious from the freezer. Just warm them up. You can pop them in the microwave. I usually take it out the night before so it thaws in the refrigerator, and then you can warm it up as you'd like, or pop it back in the oven if you want. So hopefully that helps for the batch cooking.
Absolutely, because we love anything you can freeze. Because we know it's all about helping you get meals, ready on hand throughout the week, throughout the month. We do suggest that you, label things in the freezer so you remember when you put them in the freezer. Again, who's done that? We don't want to waste food and, a year later, you're wondering what this mystery package is in the freezer. And then also to, that way, a lot of people don't like to cook. I mean, Emily and I certainly do. But that's not a good time for everybody. So if you do batch cooking, at least you're going to have some things on hand. So we're not grabbing for maybe less nutritious foods or, not just relying on, just a few ingredients here or there. You can kind of spread out your protein intake as well.
And you know exactly what you've put into it because you've made it. So
exactly.
You don't have to read any labels because you have the recipe and you know what you did. So I'm going to make the yogurt garlic sauce.
Let's look at that. All right.
Easy. This is the Greek yogurt that I'm using again. So obviously it is a bit thicker, but you can use whatever yogurt. I'm going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Again, whatever oil you used on the meatballs, you can use. Some fresh lemon juice, okay? And then I'm going to add some cumin. And I'm going to add some grated garlic in there. So I'm doing this. I should have got a bigger bowl, but now this is just a trial and error for me to make sure that I don't get it out of the bowl itself. So you're just going to whisk this together. And I have my rasp and a clove of garlic. And if you don't have a rasp, you can just there's a side of your box grater that will work to get a nice fine grate. You can use a little garlic grater, or you could just mince it up if you'd like, okay? You don't need the garlic, but it's kind of a nice kick, okay? It has a nice flavor to it with the yogurt and the lemon. And then you're gonna taste it for seasoning, which basically means add as much salt as you think it needs, okay? I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt to it. And this you can make and keep in the refrigerator. I usually make extra because we're a sauce family. And so I usually double up the recipe because this is great if you're making pitas or wraps and you just want a little bit of a different flavor. It's great on a turkey sandwich, okay? I'm just gonna add a little pinch of salt to that. And this will last basically as long as your yogurt. So if you keep note of the best before date of your yogurt, but I usually keep it for about a week and make sure I whisk it up before I use it so that it tends to, because it does tend to separate a bit in the refrigerator. And that's our yogurt garlic sauce. Quick and easy. Any other questions, Tracie?
Well, we do have a few about the yogurt sauce. So some people are asking about, dairy-free options. So here's the thing. This recipe was made specifically with Greek yogurt because of the protein and calcium content, along with some other nutrients. So we have not tested it with a dairy-free version of a yogurt. That probably would be something that you may kind of test on your own. Emily, I don't know if you have any comments, because everything you see is tested to make sure that it's delicious and it works, actually, because that's part of it, right, Emily?
It is, and obviously because we want the nutritional benefits of the ingredients that we're using. So, I mean, if in the end you needed to use a dairy-free option, there are dairy-free yogurts that you could use, dairy-free sour cream if you needed to, and you could add those flavors of the cumin, garlic, lemon, and some oil to it to kind of rebuild it. So you'll get that sauce and it'll taste delicious. The nutritional components will not be the same. So as Tracie mentioned, there's a reason behind all of this. We want to kind of help build the calcium and protein in your dinners and lunches, breakfasts throughout the week. So that's one way to do it. So having something like this. So that would be the big difference. But there are dairy-free options out there that you could definitely use. Okay, so I do want to say yes to that because they will work. And you can use the same amounts. Some of those dairy-free options have significant flavor differences. So the yogurt has a little bit more of that acidity. It's a plain flavor, much like sour cream. Whereas some of the dairy-free yogurts are based, if they're coconut based, for example, they have a stronger flavor that will come through. But if you're already using that, you know that, and your flavor, and you will recognize that flavor. So that's all good. So I cooked some ahead because, as I told you, the family loves this recipe. So I was happy to have double sheet pans of dinner. So I took some out earlier. I'm going to bring the meatballs over here. Okay. And I already scooped some of my kale couscous out. And basically what I'm going to do is take some of the veggies and the meatballs, put them all on top. And I usually go for 4 meatballs as a serving, but just depends, you know, if you're not too hungry, you can go for 2. You want to tuck it into a pita instead. That would be delicious as well. You could still put some of the couscous, kale couscous in there. That would be lovely. I'm going to get a small spoon. And put a little bit, so you can serve the sauce like just all on top like this if you'd like, or just on the side and people can help themselves. It's really up to you, okay? And that's it. I'll bring it up closer to this camera.
You know, Emily, I always say you eat first with your eyes. That's a beautiful plate. It's so colorful. It really is. It's so pretty.
And I want you all to realize that, I mean, we've been here for, you know, 40 minutes. It doesn't take that long to make.
Just don't have us on to talk to you and you'll be done.
Exactly. You just tell everybody you have to make this dish. It'll happen in about half an hour. And most of it's just in the oven. You can be doing the dishes while everything's cooking in the oven.
Absolutely. And we're going to have Emily do that taste test.
Yes, I will. I will take one for the team. But are there any other questions? Like
I'm taking a quick look. Now we're getting, looks yummy, looks so delicious. So I'm going to make it this weekend. That's awesome. I know there's a couple of people who had comments about the garlic, that they can't eat garlic. Would there be an option for that? I guess leave it out. Is there something else you would suggest?
So there's a couple things because garlic reacts differently for people. So if it's raw garlic that bothers you, you can actually cook the garlic before you put it into the garlic sauce. So you could saute it in a little bit of oil and then add that oil and garlic to the mix. You could also steam the garlic in the microwave, just chop it up, cover it and steam it. That takes away some of the rawness of it. Some people are okay with garlic powder. So you could use about half a teaspoon of garlic powder in there and, you know, that will work too. Or you just have a yogurt sauce, a yogurt lemon sauce. If you want to amplify that lemon flavor, just add a little bit of lemon zest to it, about half a teaspoon, and it will be a beautiful sauce that works perfectly. And if the garlic, and you can omit the garlic, same kind of rules apply for the meatball as well. And you could use some garlic powder if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And someone just said that they're going to make it with their grandkids. So,
oh, that's perfect.
Isn't it perfect? If you're good with, you know, they get their hands in there, let them make a bit of a mess, and then they will eat it after. They're learning. Yes. Most kids, in my experience, once they cook with you and they help make and prepare, I'm sure everyone has some experience with this, they'll eat it because they're like, well, I did such a great job. Aren't I a good, you know?
What I love about this recipe is it's intergenerational. So yes. You can really bring different generations together because of the flavors and the fact that it is a simple recipe. It's meatballs. In the end, everybody, it's meatballs.
It's just a meatball. Exactly, exactly. And you know what? We do have some other recipes on the website we have one with beef, chickpeas. We've got some other ones, different flavor profiles. They're all made with different kind of sides and, you know, salads, etc., like that. So how is that, Emily? She's
I saw with my mouth full.
It's all good. It's all good.
And you can sign that I like it, the fact that I keep eating it.
Exactly. I know, right? Emily does it for us. Oh, we have so many people saying they're definitely going to make this. So before we just end, let's give away the apron. And so we're going to, I'm just pulling it up here.
And it's not my apron, it's a brand
It's
new.
not yours, no, it's a brand new apron. So Brenda Rossborough from New Brunswick, Plaster Rock, New Brunswick. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm going to email you. We're going to get you that apron so you can cook just like Emily too. And you are all welcome. So many kind compliments. We are going to, let me just share my screen here. So we have more recipes, like I said. Now, these are other recipes. These are not meatball recipes, but they're equally as delicious. So new ones like the smoky lemon, egg, and quinoa soup. We have a recipe for cheddar herb scones made with Greek yogurt, Tex-Mex cornbread topped beef pie. We actually did a cooking demo last year on this. This was very popular. And we have the General Tao pork and noodles, very flavorful. So check out osteoporosis.ca/recipes. And also, we are working on some new webinars and events. So they're not on the website yet to register. But we have a Thanksgiving themed cooking demo at the beginning of October that Emily and I are going to do. We also have an educational event coming up in Moncton, New Brunswick, this November. So keep checking the website, but also make sure you subscribe to the newsletter so we can get you the information directly in your inbox. And if you didn't know, we have a new nutrient calculator on the website where you can put in what you eat during a day and see if you're getting enough of all the nutrients we talked about today: calcium, protein, magnesium, vitamin K, vitamin D. So visit that. It's on the homepage. Also check out our podcasts, our blog, and our replay. So yes, this will be, or it has been recorded. So if obviously you've all registered, you'll get the email by tomorrow with the link if you want to, rewatch it and check out Emily making the featured recipe. And again, if you want to subscribe, if you've come on and you're not already subscribed to our newsletter, just go to the homepage, top right-hand corner, click subscribe, and we will get you on the email distribution list. We love having you on. We're so excited to see everyone again. We're light on our cooking demos, which is always the case during summer. So we've got so much coming up. We can't wait to see you in October again. Be sure to stay connected, stay well, happy cooking, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much to Emily, as always, for doing a fantastic job. We'll talk to y'all later. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Bye,
Tracie.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.